Hey guys, I'm Matt Lighty, and I get asked the question after people watch me running 16s and 17s, how do I sustain them? What's my practice for running 16s and looping them into 17s, and kind of my whole spiel for like interweaving that process. How am I doing my resource management for 16s and 17s? So that's what this video is about. It's just about basically looping my 16s and into 17s and then rinse repeating. The builds I'm playing to do this are correct. Keep that in mind. If you're curious about any of my builds, you can import them into POB from my profile in my link tree in the description. That's where it is. That's where it's always going to be. Also, quick word from this month's sponsor. For the month of May, I'm partnering with a dope candy company called Rotten Gummy Worms. Rotten sells regular and sour gummy worms that are gluten-free and low in sugar. But most importantly, they taste pretty darn good for a worm. You could use the promo code LIGHTY for 15% off your order with free shipping on orders of $45 or more. I also recommend checking out their website with its retro, goofy art style, very early 90s Adult Swim, funky games, and sick merch. Rotten Gummy Worms. Sickeningly delicious. Something that I kind of fine-tuned on stream the past couple days, and it's how I acquire 17s and how I run 17s. And it is the same tree for both of them. It's a pretty bog standard back to basics tree. It has all of the map effect nodes, all of the map drop nodes, all of the blocks, all of the scarab stuff, all of the quantity, and that's basically it. Its job is to farm T16's to drop T17's, and then to run T17's that drop corrupted 8 mod 16's, and then the loop continues. This is intended with solo self-run in mind, because the scarabs I use to run the 16's are different than the 17's, and both are very obtainable and sustainable. Okay, so the scarabs I use for my 16's is one cartography scarab, okay, one hunted trader, and then 2 barrels. I use those each map, and I'm only doing 16s that are 8 mod. The 8 mod 16s I'm acquiring from doing 17s that have on this cartography scarab of corruption, and that's basically dropping all the maps I'll ever need. And half of the maps I throw out because I can't run them with this build, so literally I'm over sustaining on maps by a metric ton. Now, the build I'm playing doesn't want to do 4 or 5 map mods. I don't like doing no regen, aura, minus max, and recovery. Those are the big ones, okay? This is how big my RF is. It's big, and it does nothing but pop barrels. I'm doing silo because the 17 I want is from silo. If you were in trade or didn't care what 17 you want to do, I would recommend Toxic Sewer or Waste Pools. Those are also good, but I use silo for this. So I have my map on, using quantity, have the tree on. Nothing special past this because it's back to basics. You're going to assume all of these values are basically going to be doubled and then some, but that doesn't really matter. And again, the intention of doing this is to drop 17s and then sustain. So you can see what I mean by the width of my RF is like the width of the area, kind of, okay? I will be dropping white 16s that are silo on here. I don't have singular focus. Singular focus is not good for doing this ultimately, we've discovered. It's better to just not even do it. I have overall higher map returns. If you didn't know how 17s drop, there's a little excerpt on the wiki that is useful for you when it comes to what your favorited maps are and singular focus. Okay, so certain T17s can be obtained from certain maps. For example, if you're trying to farm Fortress because you want to get Yoke of Suffering, you have to be doing one of these maps. Now, all these maps aren't on the Atlas because whatever, but these are the maps you want to run. The important part is the actual map to drop prior to conversion does not matter. Only the map the player is currently in matters, okay? So, say I'm doing a silo, but I had Toxic Sewer favorited, it's not going to drop a Ziggurat for Toxic Sewer, it's only going to drop Fortress because I'm in a silo. So if you are running a specific map, you're going to get those maps, alright? So for me, silo, Fortress, that's where I'm at, yada yada yada. Now, when I'm actually clearing these maps, again, I'm doing barrel, so I'm just zigzagging through the map. I'm picking up the white maps just because I might want them from other parts of a grind something, but honestly, you could just, once you like are established, so say once you have 10 T17's, you could essentially hide uncorrupted maps on your filter if you so choose. It's not going to matter. You'll over-sustain infinitely. I'm going to show you a 17 after this to show you how many maps to loosely expect. But, you know, the conversion rate of a 17 to a 16 is based off of your void stones, effectively. So you have 0.4% per void stone, 1.6. So 1.6% chance when any map drops. While I'm in this map, it's going to become a fortress, and a lot of maps will be dropping. As you can see, a lot of maps are dropping. The barrels drop a ton of maps. I'm not going to pick up most of them because I have no need for them. But hopefully we'll get some 17s. I've gotten up to 3 17s in one map. Now I'd say on average I'm probably getting a 17 every 2 to 3 maps. So pretty consistent, and again, over-sustaining is not an issue. Especially with scarabs, and you'll see why when we start doing 17. But I recommend picking a build that has good clear and it can pop barrels automatically for this strategy of doing 16s to 17s, because I don't want to be clicking manually for barrels, and that's why I like doing RF, because it just pops them instantly. And unfortunately, because I'm doing solo, the boss sucks, so typically I walk in, hit the blue pack, and then just leave. Alright, so hypothetically, let's say we got our 17 to drop. You know, maybe it's something we want. And let's hop over to the other character and show you what it's like running those 17s to sustain my 16s. And then this just, you know, feeds into itself infinitely. Okay, so here's my 17. It's rolled perfectly acceptable. It's got some bad mods, it's got some good mods, it's got stuff. What I do for my 17s is I put on 1 cartography scarab of corruption. This gets me my 8 mod maps. Outside of that, I'll typically put on either 1 or 2 of these. These are the rare packs. And then I'll probably just put on a reliquary scarab just for some uniques. This is going to give me my pack size. This is my uniques I need. You know, again, I'm not using any of the scarabs I'm doing for my 16s, so you can see how, like, I don't have to supply, double dip my supplies. I don't even run. Oh, they're already in here. Perfect. Let's do these instead. Let's do 1 of each in here, and then you can feed the rest in. Quantity, nothing different. There's my map, putting it in, no problem. Again, it's the exact same atlas. I'm just going to get more 16s. They're not all going to be silos. And, you know, if I don't typically don't pick up the non-silos, but you can. Mostly going to be silos. The favorite system is pretty dominant even without, you know, singular focus on here. See a shaper trying to slam me. The loot from 17s is almost unmanageable how much you get. So, again, this is like pretty low. Preservation, that's a rare one. That's the don't use one. Yeah, all of these mirrored rares we put on, they just drop fucking boatloads of shit. It's just non-stop shit. Only roll a 17 you could handle, you know, depending on what your goal is. Some people's goal is just the trash mob. Some people's goal is the boss itself. For me, the boss is more important, so I won't ever roll a 17 where I can't kill the boss in. But don't go past what you can handle. You can see for sustain, I've already gotten, what is it, six maps now or something like that. More than enough to, like, you know, sustain out if I needed to. If we didn't pick up half of those maps, right, we're saying hypothetically, what if I threw out half the maps? Like, here's a good example. This map had reflect on it and can't recover. That's a no-go for me. You can just leave it on the ground if you don't want it or whatever. So far we've gotten 1 map, that's a keeper. 2 maps, that's a keeper. 3 maps, that's a keeper. 4 maps, that's a keeper. So, like, as far as 8 mod maps go, we're already 4 up. Meaning those 4, I would almost guarantee you're going to drop a 17 amongst them. So we've already, like, paid for the map we're in. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is not an above average map. This map is, like, not anomalous in our returns. This is totally inline and average with, like, any other fucking 17. Like, you know, these values being in, like, the hundreds, like low hundreds, like only 150 map returns, that goes up to like 300. So this is like not a fucking extra kooky map. This is pretty just bog standard. That's just how 17s are. They're kind of nuts. Less recovery, just gotta leave it on the ground. As always, if you have any questions about my builds, feel free to ask them, but I'd recommend just porting in my fucking POB. It's, you know, you could port in my account into POB, it's just easier. Sometimes you just saw this map dropped un-ID'd. I don't know why this happens, but it does. I just leave it on the ground because it had no regen, but, you know, I just check the maps that go minus max, don't want it. Making my way to the boss room because, again, that's top priority to me. Like, as cracked as this map is, I need to make it to the boss room so I get my fragments. Oh, I've been petrified. Oh, get off me! Here's the boss room. Drop my portal outside. Walk in, trigger the fucking explosion. Alright, boss o'clock. I've been slapped. It just means I get to bank for free. Put all my maps away, empty your inventory. I typically leave with 3 or 4 inventories full of scarabs and currency, and probably about maybe 8 to 12 silo maps, you know, or whatever map you want to pick. I didn't actually even check the map mods. How do you one-shot me? 600% damage random element. That'll do it. So don't tank the slam. TLDR. He has made a paper mache though, this map. Holy shit. Alright, that was fast. Hopefully we get ourselves a sweet couple fragments. Minimum 2. Sometimes you get 1 and it's offensive. Alright, good. Synth fragment, good. Decaying fragment, good. Moving on. There's the loot. I hide most things in this filter, but, you know. Alright, let's finish clearing. Here we've got some more goodies ahead of us. I think I had, what? I had like 5 maps, so... we'll see how many we get past those 5. So, for example, if you had... I had 2 of the rare pack mirrored scarabs. 1 unique scarab, and I had 1 of the corrupted map scarabs. If you, like, were super up on maps, like, say I had, you know, whatever, I had a tab full of corrupted maps. It's actually... that's very doable in, you know, after a day of playing, especially, like... that's a no-go, but like it's not crazy to have a tab of maps. So say I had a tab of maps full, you could easily sub out the extra corrupted map scarab for, you know, an extra reliquary scarab. Or if you wanted something different, you could, you know, put in hunted traders or more magic mobs, if you want to juice your map that way. Yeah, it's pretty flexible. I would say every 2 out of 3 maps you're going to want to put on the corrupted map scarab to keep the maps coming. But depending on how picky... oh, we got real low there. How picky your build is. Like, my build's a little picky for mapping. So like I said, I'm not doing like 5 fucking mods. But if your build is less picky, then you might be able to, you know, do... you know, only all but 2 mods. And that's, in which case, then, yeah, you're going to want to... you can flex slot your end a little bit more. Like, this one has no region and a reflect. So obviously I'm not going to do that. But if it didn't have one of those 2 things, maybe your build could do one of those 2 things. So it just depends on your build. You know, some of them are more... accessible than my Valak is fucking dog shit today. That is a acceptable map. Nice. Oh, a Calandra's... oh, it's not a Calandra's touch. Oh, I got memed on. I thought it was a Calandra's touch. It's a fucking essence form with hatred. I got a vendor again. This is our 2nd full inventory. Definitely, like, got enough scarabs back, so we easily refunded, right? This is map 6, I think. I think 7 was on the floor back there, so we have... probably funded the next at least 2 T17's. You can see how this is free as free can be. Yep, that's a keeper. And that's a keeper also. Alright, we are at 8 silos we've gotten back that are acceptable. So we've been checking them. You know, you can check them as you go. Actually, it depends on how fucking chill you are. I like to check them as I go because it makes my life easier. Stay organized. For my scarabs, I only have 2 specified. I have reliquary and cartography, since those are the specific scarabs I use the most on. But feel free to put on, you know, divination or any other specified ones. I do feel like ultimately the more specified scarabs you have, in a weird way, I got slammed. They're probably limiting the amount of generic scarabs we use, and the most generic scarabs we use, or we use generic scarabs more than anything. So maybe don't go, you know, whole hog on the specifics. And again, we're blocking so much of this content that we're not going to be seeing that stuff. But if, for example, you wanted to see something, like if you really, really wanted guaranteed trial masters, or you really, really wanted to get, you know, one of those things, you could unblock them. Even if the extra content can't appear from Back to Basics, you still can get the scarabs for that stuff. So this just kind of depends on preference. As far as tempering what you want to get. I'm more interested in generic stuff than specific stuff. So for me, that's where I'm blocking. But do it based on preference. Or market prices or whatever the fuck. And my filter is quite aggressive when it comes to what I'm hiding. Depending on your filter, you might have to get stricter, less strict if you want specific things or not. So that's just up to, again, the person. Having an important filter, like having a filter is very important in this, you know. And we said that I'm doing silos specifically, but like right there is a jungle valley, right? And if you didn't care about the aura, I do, but if you didn't care about that, and like that's a great map generically. So it depends on like what you're looking for. because if you are more loosey-goosey with what maps you're doing and you just like don't care, you know, 8 mod, great, run it, then it's even less strict. This is actually the reason that this showcase I think is really good, is because I'm showing a showcase of running the 16s into the 17 loop, specifically in a scenario where I'm extra fucking picky. And because I'm extra picky, this is like as bad as it gets effectively. Like I'm sending back half of my fucking silos, you know what I'm saying? So because of that, because how picky I am, that just goes to show how easy it is to sustain the map portion. The scarab portion is, well, that part's beyond easy, as you could tell. You have more scarabs you know what to do with, for the most part. And, you know, even if I'm over-sustaining, if for some reason I start to dip a little bit, I could take a scarab I don't give a shit about, like these guaranteed beyond scarabs, and you could 3-to-1 them out, and you're going to get the most common outcomes for scarabs. So a lot of those common outcomes are a lot of the type of things we use, you know? So you're going to get things like Hunted Traders and things like Magic Pack Size. So, yeah, there's no problem sustaining that. Let's do another, top over and do another 16, because I want to show you what it looks like to get a 17 to drop. Not that it's really going to be more than like, oh, look, it's a 17 on the ground, but just for video's sake, you saw what clearing the 17 itself looked like. So I kind of want to showcase the getting the 17 part a little bit more. Here's all our silos. Let's just take, here's a, you know, perfectly average map that we grabbed. Pop this bad boy in, and let's see if we can get ourselves to 17 drop. Shouldn't be too difficult. So many scarabs. You know, there's 2 Kartos already, so we're good for the next 2 maps there. Look at all the fun. It's like, if you ever had a problem sustaining silos, I think you're probably good. You'll, because we have Hunted Traders on, you'll see them fighting, you know, other mobs. And, yeah, they're just chilling, doing God's work. Rolling 17s, depending on your build, can be a bit irksome when it comes to what you're looking out for. There are a set specific amount of mods that I don't run for 17s, and it's not even amount of that I can't run them. Like, I am juicing the maps quite decently, but there are just amount of mobs that I don't run because I fucking hate doing them. So we're going to get a 17. I'm going to show you me rolling it, and then I'll probably display on screen in some sort of color-coded bullshit which mods I don't run because I like dislike them, and then which mods I don't run because they piss me off. That's the most realistic way I could kind of color code this, I think. And I just want to reiterate, that's totally build dependent, you know, depending on what you're playing, what your build is, even how good you are, it could be a slightly different list. And I never really spend more than like maybe 20C at the top end, 30C to roll a map, so yeah, it doesn't take very long to do. You'll get, you know, well over that amount of 20, 30C per 17, so you're totally fine on returns. This is our third map. I would be surprised if we don't get a 17, if not from this one, then if not from the next one, because it's like a 1 in, what is that, like a 1 in, 70 or something to get a 17. So I feel like it's just kind of a matter of time. I did have an unlucky streak today on stream where I didn't get a T14 for like 9 maps, but then I got 3 in the next map, so it's just a life of averages, you know? Hey, there's a 17. Alright, let's finish clearing the map, then we could roll it together and show you exactly what I like and dislike and why. Okay, so here's the map. Unironically, the way I identified it is 100% acceptable to me. It has dead stats for me, so the player not being able to gain charges, whatever. I really only gain frenzies, not a big deal. The damage doesn't make a difference. He'll be stronger, but I could probably survive it even if I don't. The boss dies fast, so not a problem. Boss having AoE life doesn't make a difference. Him having frenzy charges doesn't make a difference. And monsters avoiding elements, I don't apply elements, so I would identify this. But let's pull up all the 17s and I can put them in categories for you, at least from my perspective. Okay, so I have this very nonsensical, confusing color chart that I have for 17s. Basically used to, like, gradiently explain which ones are kind of shit and whatever. It's like, it goes yellow, well, I guess it goes green to red. Green being positive, actually, and red being fuck you, terrible. Anything in red, I basically will always reroll. And then some of them are contextual to the build. For example, I'm playing a CI build, right? So having 50% less defenses, I'm not interested in. I don't want to have half fucking EF, so fuck that. The ones in green, like rare mobs, synth boss, volatile barrels. This one's not supposed to be that color. That's supposed to be a bad color. This is going to be like that. But yeah, all those are like basically free and positive, so I love those. And everything else that's in yellow is like meh, and the stuff that's in like darker colors is like depending and pretty annoying, but the red ones are the ones I'd watch out for. So, marked for death, terrible. Always get you killed. Volatile cores, I don't know what they do, but they're lethal as shit. You know, some of these ones are like people really don't like, I don't mind. Unstable Tentacles, Maven, Shaper, not a big deal, honestly. Easy to play around, but like reduced action speed, God, I hate that. Reduced aura effect, minus res, crazy amounts of pen. Like, we're doing back to basics. All these values are doubled. I can't be walking around with 30 resistance. You know, it's just not playable. Union of Souls, such a bummer. So, like, anything marked in red, like, I'll have this in the description as, like, a loose chart, but, like, those are the ones I would just straight up fucking avoid. Because, man, they're terrible. So, yeah, and the ones in green are nice. Again, volatile barrels, free loot. Synth boss, the dude dies in 2 seconds, free loot. More rare mobs, more rare modifiers, free loot, love it. So any of my 17s that have those things, like, I don't mind at all. You know, this one has a synth boss, great. But like, if it has one of the negative modifiers, I don't think I have any on here, but they get super bad. And depending on the map boss, you have to also use your brain a little bit. Like, this one has increased AoE. The fortress boss, being the robot, only has one AoE attack, really. It's the big bomb, and then the slam also is AoE, but like, they don't really do that much damage, so I'm not too worried about that. He has no projectiles, also, so I'm not worried about that at all. Let's do the one with the Shaper, or the synth boss. And again, like, this one is triple curse, right? If you were playing a build that didn't have curse immunity, or being unaffected by a curse, yeah, I'd probably be a little bit concerned with that, you know? But I do, so I'm not concerned with that. But, you know, I could see how you could be. Or unique bosses are possessed. If you look at the list of possession-type buffs there are, like 3 out of 20 of the ghosts are problematic. Most of them are fine, but some of them are problematic. So I'm not too worried about that sort of stuff, but there's like a line where that becomes problematic, and I'm just, you know, you're just rolling the dice kind of. Yeah, so like, all of the values basically doubled or tripled here. 8 additional packs with mirrored rares. He has 567 damage of a random element. Yada, yada, yada. You know, so things to be on the lookout for. You know, if you're doing back to basics also, you have to be worried, but like, just keep in mind that like, a lot of these scalable values aren't problematic until they're scaled to the moon. Because you get things like, you know, AoE, for example. When my AoE goes below 0, it becomes a problem. I do like half damage. If for some builds, if it goes below 0, you don't do damage anymore. You know, you might literally not be able to hit the boss. So you gotta be a little bit smart with what you're doing, because it could be, you know, it could be problematic. Okay, let's see if he gets a good or bad boss. Like, Rogue is bad, Cutthroat's bad, Martyr should be fine. There's the synth boss, right? So like, watch how fast this fucker just dies. He's dead in 2 seconds. 2 seconds, he's gone. And he leaves a mountain of loot in the ground, by the way. So just for context, like, if you're ever worried, the synth boss is free fucking loot. And, yeah, there goes the boss. Again, no defensive modifier, so he just dies like he's a wet noodle. It's all about just knowing what you're doing, as far as being prepared for. Like, he has a ton of damage modifiers, so I'm ready for that. And 2 fragments, God bless. I'm dead. I'm not dead. And just to showcase, like, you see this amount of loot in the floor, and if for some reason you think that nothing is dropping, this is if I hold Alt. This is the amount of shit that is being hidden by my filter, just for context. So it's not as if nothing's dropping. I'm just hiding a billion items. Sweet, sweet silo. I love it. All right, map's done. So we got out of there. We got an inventory, and then this. Pretty fucking juicy yet again. Totally refunding my amount of scarabs, but I only got 1 keeper map. So the last one I got like 10, this one I got 1. Still paying for itself and then some, no problem. So I basically would repeat this process for the next 4 maps, get all my maps back, then I'd rinse, repeat, and run the next 40 silos and produce another chunk of 8 to 10 fortresses. And you could just go infinite from here. So that's pretty much my process for looping between 16s, like looping 16s into looping 17s, with 100% sustain. And I'm doing this mostly for Uber fragments. I want to fight these Exarchs and, Cirruses and that sort of stuff. But if you don't care about the boss as much, then you could juice the maps technically even more. Look for the different scarab numbers. Like this one is 90% scarab. This one does not have a scarab roll. This one has a 50% scarab. This one has a 50% scarab roll. It depends what you want to go for. Also, you can identify maybe the ones that have maps. So, for example, this one says more maps plus 50%. This one doesn't, right, in the top. Maybe you don't put an 8 mod on this map. Maybe you put 2 reliquaries, 2 rares. This one has the map modifier. Then you put a, 2 rares, a 8 corrupted, and then a more map scarab. You're going to just, again, play smart, lean into the map. If the map rolled perfectly and it has more of like maps versus more of scarabs, then you just craft accordingly. But you're really not overlapping too much for scarabs again with this process. So you have ample amounts of scarabs, reliquary maps, and then the generic ones for this. So that's that. I've been Matt Lighty. This has been my little 2-pronged process that I'm doing for getting my Uber boss farms. And it's been pretty successful, and it's free as fuck, assuming you have a build that can do them. Again, I suggest having a build to run the 16s that could do back-to-basic 16s with a limited pool of rare mods. They can't do something like an on-hit Trinity, Wander, or Bow build that doesn't care about no regen, no recovery, things like that. It can just rely on-hit effects and is can just run LE damage. That way they can run Awakened like a Wed and not have to worry about Reflect, etc. So if you can play a build that doesn't require as gentle care as my Chieftain, then you could pretty much do any of the 8 mods that drop, and it makes your life just that much easier. So that's it. I'm Matt Lighty, Little Shrimp Boy here, and I'll catch you guys in the next video or in stream. Bye-bye.